Welcome to a football show Thursday edition. Nick Suss of the Tennessean. You can follow him there. Read his work there. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. We've got a fantastic draft party coming up today. Coming up today. Great show today. Fantastic draft party coming up later this month, April 23rd and 25th, Thursday and Saturday. I'll give you more details about that in just a second. Brought to you, of course, by Sinkers Beverages. I love you, Sus, says Corey. A little early in the morning to be professing our love to each other. Good morning, Nick. How are you, sir?
Good, Corey. I think I knew a person named Corey Miller 12 years ago. Are you that person, or are you just a new person that I like? Congrats on liking me.
I knew a Corey Miller who played defensive end for the Giants in the South Carolina Gamecocks, so I used to do radio with. Does that count?
That's knowing somebody. But yeah. Good morning to everybody. Active comment section in the first 90 seconds. And
I love it.
We got some stuff to talk about.
I love it. There we go. The background of that one photo was stunning. I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay. All right, Bustin. I guess it's appropriate that you're the one asking with the handle. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about officiating, because that's a major problem in the NFL.
Yeah, it's a really big deal.
It's a huge story that that could affect the outcome of the season. We've got a huge deadline coming up on that. That'll be later on in the show. I want to get into the Rueben Bain talk as well, because the predictive markets are backing up the Daniel Jeremiah report, if you want to call it that, loosely. Again, this time of year, no idea what to believe or not. It's must-lie season. You never know what's real, but apparently, according to him, he believes the Titans are out on Rueben Bain. So do the prediction markets. If you look at those sort of poly-market things, and Kalshi, we'll look at that a little bit later on. I want to get into sort of a conversation around the quarterback room. Obviously, Cam Ward and all the guys back in the building, they're posting videos of him throwing footballs at I almost said St. Thomas, at Vanderbilt. What is it called? The Vanderbilt Health Complex, or what's it called now?
Vanderbilt Health Football Complex Football Center.
See, you don't even know.
It's VHFC. But
okay. So we'll get into that as well. We will discuss and start the show with what we believe fans need to understand about the reporter-source relationship and what that can do to information and what that can do to your team. If you are here to listen to the two of us discuss salacious personal details of people's lives that I do not give a shit about, you are at the wrong show. But we will try to give you meaningful information about what, where, why, and how this kind of thing can happen, and what's important about the source-reporter relationship, and what you need to know about how that affects information. Because that is really what matters here. What people do in their personal life is not my business, and I don't care. I just don't. I never have. I never will. I don't, dunk culture on Twitter is already disgusting, in my opinion. I know that makes me an old dad, but whatever. It's not my thing. So if y'all want to do it, there's plenty of places to go get that content. So we're going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it hopefully in a smarter way that makes all of you understand exactly how this stuff works. Because frankly, I just don't see the conspiracy here that everyone else does. It's just people's personal lives that I don't give a shit about. So, all right, here we go. Let's roll. Sinkers Beverages in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com is the email you need. Incrowd at sinkersbeverages.com. That is the email address if you would like to RSVP for our charity draft party coming up on Thursday, April 23rd at ML Rose. All you can eat, all you can drink, open bar. We're going to have a live stream show. We're going to have some live products there for you in person to do some live stuff. So I promise you there's going to be some real cool personalities there. We're going to have a contest where you can guess on the top 10 picks. We're going to have our own prediction market, Nick, at this event. So it's going to be fun. We're going to give away some really good stuff from Sinkers Beverages. So make sure you come out to that. $40 RSVP now. Spots are limited and filling up. So if you want to come, we have a limited capacity at the event space, and we are getting close. So if you want to RSVP, I know a lot of you guys wait till the end to do so. I'm trying to warn you, this one will max out on Thursday night, and we won't have space. We will continue to sell tickets for Saturday night, $75. You're going to have a 5-flight bourbon tasting. I got word yesterday, Nick, that we will have some autographed merch courtesy of the Tennessee Titans for our audience that's going to be there on Saturday night. Might have an auction involved, going to have a giveaway gift bag, all kinds of cool stuff from Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, which is where the location's going to be. Private Q&A with reporters, including the great Nick Suss, Paul Kaharski, We're going to have some other folks there. James Foster's going to be there. Steve Cavendish is going to be there. I'm going to be there. A bunch of people are going to be there. We're trying to get some other special guests to show up as well. Going to be a lot of fun, a lot of off-the-record conversations, and that may be a place where we can discuss and gossip about things, but not on this show. So those tickets are available. There's limited spots, so please RSVP now. InCrowd, INCROWD, @sinkersbeverages.com. Email those guys and say, hey, here's my name. Here's how many tickets. Here's the night I want to come. Well, everybody's going to pay at the door. So tickets are selling very well, and I'm very just proud and awesome and excited about all you guys and what you're doing. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a breath. So how do you want me to start this? Because I don't care about the salacious details of this.
Let's start with 2 sentences in case there are people in the comments or watching live or listening back who mercifully do not know the background of the thing we are hesitant to talk about.
I'm so jealous of those people.
I am too.
It means like by the way, I checked my Instagram screen time for last week. 34 minutes the entire week, and I'm so proud of that. And I still got like inundated with this content this week. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So, all right. How about this? There are some photos that have surfaced, reported by the Post, the New York Post, which is famous for this stuff, right? Page 6 of the New York Post, I think, is famous for this stuff. That are pictures of Mike Vrabel-Dianna Russini, reporter for The Athletic, and Patriots head coach. I don't know why I need to clarify all this stuff. At a resort following the owners' meetings last week in Arizona that is, I guess, a high-end exclusive couples resort. They appear to be more than friends, but that is just the appearance. There is no confirmation of any X, Y, and Z. The 2 individuals in this story have come out and said, y'all are making too much of this. There's nothing there. So is that the gist of it? Have I got everything there?
That's the simple reality. And now,
okay.
Braden.
Well, I want like there's 2 ways to look at this. If you are interested, is Vrabel single? No, Vrabel's been married since 1999. They have kids. Famously, one of them took a shit on national television.
And Diana is married as well.
And Diana is married since 2020 to an executive from Shake Shack, I believe. All the information I probably didn't have up until a couple days ago. There are 2 ways to talk about this story. One of them is like, if you are like my wife and you enjoy all the salacious, gossipy details, that's how you can have this story in your life if you want it to be that way. That does not have any relevance on you as a Tennessee Titans fan. It has no relevance on you as a football fan. It has no relevance on you if you're a Patriots fan. It has no relevance. It is not how close people are is not actually relevant to the information. There is an ethical question we can discuss, and there's a reporting discussion on all of this that I think is important, but also just, hey, people need to know about this stuff, right? So we're going to focus on the second question and the second part of the story, which is, did this affect the Tennessee Titans in any way? Did this affect your ability to acquire quality, good, accurate, truthful information? And where are the ethical lines on some of this stuff, right? I think that's a little bit more of our speed.
That's our lane.
That's our speed. So what do you think Tennessee Titans fans need to understand about the source-reporter relationship dynamic that at times can be way too close? Whether you are sleeping with your source or not, it can sometimes get way too close. People can be way too close and friendly. And that just happens. So what do people need to know about this relationship and dynamic that affects their information?
So not to give you guys a journalism 3301 class or anything like this, but in the early aughts, in the early to mid 2000s, the media industry moved from being a primarily physical and over the airwaves based industry to being primarily an online up to the minute based industry. That had already been happening with the advent of cable news in the late 80s and early 90s. But what the internet enabled people to do was to remove the barrier between time and delivery. When you received your media from a print newspaper or when you received it from television news, you knew what time the news was going to come. So the news came based off of when it needed to come and came based on, we're going to give you the biggest thing that matters since the last time we printed or since the last time we taped. Now that there is no need to wait for a time to go every 24 hours or every 12 hours or whenever your news report was. We have conditioned ourselves societally to value information more than knowledge. All of this sounds like it's going to be like preamble, but trust me, this is what we need to talk about here when we're talking about the news breaking industry and the sports news breaking industry. Obviously, transactions mattered before up to the minute digital reporting. Obviously, we cared about free agency signings. We cared about draft spectacle. We cared about rumors. But the value that we societally have put on rumor gathering and transaction gathering has far surpassed the value that we societally place on knowledge and growing knowledge bases, especially in the last 10 to 15 years as social media has even further accelerated the news delivery cycle. So all of that is preamble to say, we as readers, we as news consumers, who even though Braden and I are in the media, we count as news consumers. We have been conditioned to value up to the minute transactional news as the most valuable resource that a reporter or a reporting outlet can have. That has created a need for news outlets to have incredibly close relationships with sources who are aware of transactional news. There are only, in a sports franchise, 3 or 4 people at a given time who are aware of really granular transactions. There are also the agents on the other side, and during free agency, we're hyper aware of how granular agent relationships work. But if you're talking about team relationships, if you're talking about team gossip, if you're talking about how teams are feeling, it's a tight circle. And the job of newsbreakers, because this is what news readers have been conditioned to want, is to find ways to be in constant communication and to be in constant trust mode with the people who have the information that is craved, rather the knowledge that can be taught. All of that leads to very tricky relationships. And this is not just on the national side, this is on the local side. I know I have had relationships with sources that have been friendly instead of professional at times. I know other people on this beat have had relationships with sources that have been friendly rather than professional at times, because you need to build trust somehow. This is a trust industry. This is a how much does somebody want to reveal something to you that they are not supposed to be revealing? And it's also understanding, why are they revealing things to you? What is the agenda here that is allowing them to leak out little granules of information to you? All of this leads up to relationships between media members and sources that are a lot closer than what you're imagining when you're thinking about All the President's Men. A lot closer than you're imagining
Spotlight, I think,
when
Spotlight.
You're thinking about Spotlight.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I think.
It is not uncovering months worth of documents and all of this stuff anymore. It's shooting a text to somebody who trusts you and hoping that they'll text you back.
That's right.
And that is just, I know, more than what you guys were looking for when it's like, oh, salacious details about a potential affair. No, this is symptomatic of an entire industry that has conditioned its audience to expect up to the minute, did you know Kylan Granson signed today type reporting, instead of the stuff that actually will shape the actual conversation. And that's what leads to situations like this.
So I know personally the reporters in this city that are extremely friendly with our mayor. I take some of those reports differently than I take the reports from other folks that are less close to the mayor. And sometimes it's not that I disbelieve the information. It's that I kind of know that there's a filter that information has gone through. And so, and it's not that I don't respect these reporters. Many of them are my friends. But it does not require... It doesn't require an affair or the relationship to go that far for that information to be twisted or shaded or a little bit, again, filtered is maybe the word I should use. when you are super close with someone, it does not require an affair or a sexual relationship for that information to not get to its audience as accurate or perfectly truthful. It might be, you might only report 80% of the news because you might hold back 20% because you are very close with the source, because you are very close with this person. You're super friends. You're very friendly with this person. And like this isn't some new thing that has happened. I agree with you in kind of putting the line on like the late 90s, the internet and cable news kind of shifting the timeline on all this stuff, I think is absolutely worth noting. But I want to go to, and I'm just going to use this as an example because Stillman brought it up on his show. And that is the CJ Stroud draft pick by the Texans at number 2, by the way, not number 3 in the draft. And that his I guess Jared's theory is that because of the relationship between Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini, because they were so close, that Mike Vrabel gave her information that she then leaked out through a report, which is her job to get information and report it, that then alerted the Texans that they needed to take CJ Stroud at 2 instead of 5, and then come up and get Will Anderson later, essentially screwing the Tennessee Titans out of getting CJ Stroud at number 3. And his theory is that Mike Vrabel, I guess, would not have given her the information if he wasn't sleeping with her or allegedly having an affair or whatever their relationship was at the time. We don't have any clue what type of relationship they had at the time. But people give information from source to reporter because they like each other, because they trust each other, because they have a friendly relationship. You don't have to be sleeping together to have that relationship affect the quality of the information and how you report it. And so ultimately, that's not really on Dianna. Like, if that's what happened, and the theory is that's what happened, that's Mike Vrabel screwing himself over and his team over by trusting a reporter who then violated that trust to report out the information, which is what she gets paid to do. So if you want to blame someone for that incident, that is Mike Vrabel, dude, you shouldn't have trusted her. But you don't have to have the affair to have violated the trust. Like, that's irrelevant to the story. Why did you trust her? Well, you're friends with her. You like her. It doesn't matter how far the relationship goes. If that makes sense.
And we also have to acknowledge this important part of the newsbreaker industry. Let's use Dianna as the example, but we can talk about Schefter, we can talk about Rappaport, we can talk about any of these people. They're not talking to one team. They're, if they're good at their jobs, talking to 32 teams. So just as much as reporter A is tipping off another team about the Titans if they're talking to the Titans, that same reporter is coming to the Titans and telling them what they've heard from other teams. That is baked into this relationship, is that the insiders of the world, pick your favorite insider, pick whatever sport, pick whatever news gathering information you care about. Your favorite insider is a double agent. They are talking to everybody. Yep. And they're saying their value is that they're the only people who are talking to everybody. So they can come back to a team and say, oh, you're interested in X? Well, I heard team A talking about X. Yeah. Maybe you should be interested in Y. So this works in every direction. This does not only affect the Titans. We're talking about it because Mike Vrabel used to be coach of the Titans. Right. But this affects all 32 teams, regardless of who the reporter is.
Let me take people to SEC Media Days real fast. And this ties into your Schefter, Rappaport, NFL Network, which, by the way, NFL Network and ESPN, now the same entity. Want everyone to know that. ESPN now owns NFL Network and all the folks who work there. So now you've got one business entity with the vast majority of control over the flow of information. Why do you think that happens? Because ESPN pays billions of dollars to the NFL to have access. So let me take you to the SEC Media Days. When you go to SEC Media Days, let's say 1,500 people get credentialed. Ballpark it. About 1,300 of those 1,500 people are downstairs in the main rooms. The big room, the press room, the reporter room, the blog room, the local radio room, Radio Row, local TV stations and reporters doing stand-ups in lobbies wherever they can find a spot to get a good backdrop. Let's ballpark it and say 90% of those folks are there to gather content and try to report some stuff. And maybe you get a little few minutes of a breakout session for 8 minutes with the coach before he goes to the podium. So like 10 reporters on the beat of Tennessee get 10 minutes with Josh Heupel before he goes and does his main speech. You know who gets like hours of access to those coaches and players? CBS, ESPN, and I think SiriusXM gets one as well. There's about 4 or 5 entities that have the second floor location at SEC Media Days, and they all have their own room where they get like extended one-on-one interviews with those coaches and players. And that is where you build the relationships, and that access and proximity is why CBS 24/7 Sports, the SEC Network, right? Like the more deeply these business relationships get interwoven, the better access you have. And that is why Schefter and Rappaport and Daniel Jeremiah and all these other guys have all the information, because there is a massive financial incentive for those guys to get the information.
Yeah,
and so they set up an environment where they have access and proximity and friendship. And again, that's not a new thing. That's a very normal. I mean, PK talks about this all the time. So again, I don't even actually believe the Stroud thing is that big of a story. Like I don't like, this is just me guessing here. I'm just going to guess. I don't think Mike Vrabel wanted to draft CJ Stroud. He might have wanted to go up and get him, but like you cannot hang your entire career on drafting a quarterback and then just like tell it to a reporter with an enormous microphone and hope it doesn't come out.
Yeah,
like it seems very un-Vrabel to me to make that mistake. So
it's also worth mentioning, and I know you can conspiracy your way out of any corner, but it's also worth mentioning that the Houston Texans held the number 2 pick. So they could have picked Stroud no matter what if the Titans moved up to 3 and missed out on Will Anderson, which, again, I don't know what their strategies were, but
I think it's more likely that Vrabel was driving up the price.
Yeah. That was always something, even in 2023, that confused me, of just like, if the Texans want to pick the quarterback, why would they not pick the quarterback first? You always pick the quarterback first.
That's right.
Nevertheless, there is one upshot to this. If you guys want to hear what's the positive before we start talking about actual football, and by actual football, I mean more speculation and rumors.
True facts, Coach B.
Everybody, if it makes you feel better, Coach B, I talk pretentiously about most things.
That I can validate. Second source can confirm.
My wife is downstairs. If you don't hear her. The upshot here, the nice thing, is that for media consumers.
I'm sorry. 10 says, so what I'm hearing is if Braden sleeps with Barry Trotz, we'll have an inside line on the new GM. Yeah, basically. That's what it requires.
Yeah. The upshot is, for people, when I talk about the difference between information and knowledge, there are people in the NFL world, and I'm not just trying to say this about our show, there are a lot of great people in the NFL world who do a great job reporting knowledge over information.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to be taught, if you want to learn, if you want to understand the game and the people who run the game better,
That's right.
There are a lot of other places to go other than transactional access journalists. And that is not to denigrate transactional access journalism. It makes all of the money that allows our industry to go. But if you are looking for knowledge first, yes, there is still that is still out there.
Jess says, the person agreeing in the background, hilarious. That is his wife.
That is my wife agreeing with my pretension. And for what it's worth, I'm usually only pretentious about stuff that doesn't matter. She agreed again.
I can. That's true.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty non-pretentious about like really important stuff. But if it doesn't matter, man, I will. I will wax poetic all day.
And the pretentiousness is not that like this. What's funny, and I do find this to be also part of the story, which is this is a social media commentary at this point, which is that everyone lives in a glass house when stuff like this happens, right? And they're all throwing rocks, and like we all live in the same place, doing the same shit and making the same mistakes. We're all susceptible to the same pressures, and whether it's money or power or things of the heart or whatever, like it's all stuff that every human is susceptible to, and it's all human stuff. And so what I think does matter though is the ethics of information, and I don't think that's pretentious. I don't think that's high horse or ivory tower of us to say the vast majority of reporters are trying to deliver to their audience the best possible, highest quality, most factually correct information as possible, because that is the job. And that is how it is taught in class, is to follow those rules. And I agree. The lack of an editorial process is part of the problem here. The lack of editorial oversight is the process. So if you guys, I know you want to talk football, we're going to talk football. I get it. But I think what matters is that the information you get as a Titans fan is as close to giving you the most accurate and unvarnished picture as possible. Because then you understand your team the best. And that's the job, is to give you a best understanding of the team, the people, and the inner workings and all that stuff. So we shall see. We'll see what happens. And again, like, if I'm trying to think, like, if you think people do things that might be crossing lines to get ahead in life, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's every walk of life, every industry, every type of person that there is on this planet. So I don't know what to tell you. Okay. All right. Sinkers Beverages, in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. If you want to come to the draft party on the 23rd, the 25th, we're going to have 2 nights. ML Rose on Thursday, $40. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue on Saturday night, $75. Every penny goes to the Our Kids Foundation here in Middle Tennessee, which takes care of sexually abused children. Go check it out. Okay. I want to talk quickly here about just the quarterback stuff. You wrote about this. Cam Ward was throwing. He was posting their Tennessee Titans are posting on the socials about his throwing in slow motion, all this good stuff. But Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, and Mitchell Trubisky are here. Shea Tierney's the quarterback's coach, of course, for those that don't know. Brian Daboll, of course, they're all together now, and they can talk about football for the first time. What do you make of the dynamics of the room? Does something have to give? Is this a 4-quarterback team? What matters in this quarterback room as far as the relationships and the dynamics and how healthy Cam Ward is and who gives you a better chance at a backup? And can you trade Will Levis? A lot of questions here in this quarterback room that I find interesting.
Yeah, the starting point here is that Brian Daboll and Shea Tierney have been together for the last 8 professional seasons. They've been together, I believe, for 9 seasons in a row, dating back to Alabama. But if we're using the 8 years with the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants, the last 8 June 1sts, 4 of them, they've had 4 quarterbacks. 4 of them, they've had 3 quarterbacks. There is not a real rhyme or reason of whether they are a 3-quarterback team or a 4-quarterback team through the offseason. I do think this is a year that 4 makes sense simply because you have 2 quarterbacks coming off of shoulder injuries. You do not know how much throwing they will be doing at this point in their progression. It does make sense to have more options available, assuming Levis is not traded around draft time. I would be surprised if Levis is traded this time of year just because nobody has seen him throw a football yet. Obviously, there's advanced scouting you can do, and there's talking and reporting and all of that stuff. But until there is proof that this guy is back to 100%, which you have to imagine after 10 months away, he's probably pretty healthy. But nevertheless, all of that leads up to the one time that Daboll and Tierney coached a team where they had a quarterback coming off of a significant season-ending injury. They did, in fact, carry 4 quarterbacks through June. I would not be surprised if that happens, especially since we talked about this last week. There is a chance that the UDFA numbers will be pretty low based off of the number of veteran free agents the Titans signed this year. That might mean you do not have a UDFA quarterback to lean on, and Hendon Hooker can be your extra quarterback for the bottom of the depth chart, especially if Levis and Ward are on pitch counts. We can talk more about the trade dynamics and who Hendon Hooker is and Cam Ward's health. Ward's health is the most important thing. Ward's health probably doesn't affect the numbers all that much.
No, but that's one of the things I was going to ask. Like, we know that Will Levis is the most tradable of the assets. We know that Hendon Hooker is the least quarterbacky of the assets. He's just not. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I mean, otherwise people would have kept him around longer.
Yeah. Fourth team in 9 months.
Yeah, that's a lot of teams that say we're sorry, man, at the most important position in sports. If he had any ability, like, I think he would have stuck somewhere. So I think he's probably not long for the team. But I do find the Levis trade conversation interesting only from this perspective, which is I think of the Kirk Cousins, Robert Griffin situation. And I'm like, because what I do is I ask myself, like, what is the purpose of keeping Will Levis? Like, truly, like, if you can get something for him, get a 4th rounder or a 5th rounder or a 6th rounder.
You can't get a 4th rounder.
Or 7. I'm just like, whatever. Like, if you can get a 7th rounder for him, isn't that draft pick still more valuable than potentially Will Levis if you've got Cam Ward? And the only answer I can come up with is that he's still very young and talented, and that sometimes your starting top quarterback after a couple of years is like not it for injury reasons, like Robert Griffin, or just not good enough. Is it worth keeping him around in case the Cam Ward experiment doesn't work out? And that's not me saying I think that's going to happen. That's me asking the question. And so that's really the only debate on this is if somebody offers you anything, I feel like trading Will Levis is what you got to do here because Cam Ward, healthy starter, Mitchell Trubisky, healthy backup, is is the game. That's the game. That's the room.
Yeah, I mean, I went through and I looked at every single quarterback in the situation that Levis is in this century. So we're talking day 2 quarterback draft picks who were picked a year or two before the team that drafted them went out and picked a quarterback in the first round. So immediate replaced day 2 quarterbacks. You have some guys here like Mike Glennon in Tampa and like Davis Mills in Houston who stuck around as backups for the first rounder that came after them. I believe Sean Mannion did this after the Rams drafted Jared Goff. There are a couple examples of this, but roughly 70% of the quarterbacks in this situation have been cut or the player that was drafted behind them. A lot of them were cut before that draft pick was even made. Usually the writing's on the wall with these players, and you can go through and play the game of who was the best quarterback after these situations, after they'd been cut or released. The best players are the Colt McCoys of the world. Like, you will not find a guy who was cut or released as a result of a team drafting somebody else that went on to be a really competent starter elsewhere. Malik Willis does not fit in this sample because the Titans picked a first-round quarterback 3 years later. But like,
they drafted a third rounder and then a second rounder and then a first rounder.
Yes. If this was Geek Corner, by the way, Geek Corner,
Nice.
but
little one, yeah.
Little Geek Corner. But yeah, I think that if you look at NFL quarterback trades in the last 3 or 4 years, the last 16 trades for a backup quarterback have not yielded a team more than a 6th round pick. Yeah. Like, the market value for a backup quarterback in this league is a 6th or a 7th round pick. Most of them are 7th round picks. I would be skeptical that a team would get that desperate for Levis unless it's August 30th and your quarterback got hurt. Yeah. But I still think there is value in getting an extra 6th round pick. I still think there's value in getting an extra 7th round pick if you can leverage these picks correctly. I think the name that we're not saying, because this actually fits into Put Retrodox's comment there.
Yeah,
is Levis the best?
Yeah.
No, Mitchell Trubisky is the best backup quarterback the Titans have had since Tannehill was a backup.
I was going to say Ryan Tannehill.
Since Tannehill being a backup to Mariota
and Mariota being a backup to Tannehill.
Since that situation, Mitchell Trubisky is the best backup the Titans have had. He is a tremendous backup quarterback.
He's saying as far as raw ability, I don't disagree, but that's what got him drafted 33rd overall or whatever. He is a transformer physically. I mean, the arm strength and the size, and somebody asked about him playing Taysom Hill role for this team. He doesn't have that level of athletic ability. That's not his. Taysom Hill is a very, very good runner, a very good running back, or ability to move in space. I don't think Will Levis is a little more clunky when it comes to space. But he has enormous athletic ability. So from a raw talent perspective, like I'd put him up there with anybody that they've ever had. I agree with your point though, that Mitchell Trubisky is the better actual quarterback.
And we don't need to relitigate all of the reasons that Will Levis struggled as a starter for the Tennessee Titans. If you guys want to learn about that, go listen to 2 years worth of shows on a football show. But the main thing to remember is that so many of Will's struggles relate to his own pressure that he put on himself. And I've reported this, and I know a lot of people have reported this. He struggled to deal with failure. He struggled to deal with the pressure that he was putting on himself and that he was feeling to be the face of the franchise. It was difficult for him to forgive himself for mistakes. It was difficult for him to move on to the next play. The rewire his brain comment that Joe is referring to,
ketamine does that,
was something that we can talk about till the cows come home. His struggles had almost nothing to do with his physical ability. And if he has spent this last year totally redoubling his ability to be more zen. Sure, there is a chance that
ayahuasca question mark.
There is absolutely an opportunity for him to be. He has the talent to be good as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
Does he have the grace or the self grace to allow himself to be as good as he can be? That's the question about every quarterback, man. Like,
not to go too deep into the psychology of Will Levis, but there is like a brute force. Like I feel like, and I relate to this to some degree, that I try to like brute force solve problems sometimes when I was younger, because that feeds into my strength my strength is sort of intensity and passion and work ethic and drive. And I also very hard on myself. Like I recognize that sort of like perspective maybe. And to be a really polished, great, elite adult quarterback, like there has to be a lot of nuance and subtlety about the things that you fix. What's the book, Atomic Habits, right? You got to change little things that lead to bigger changes. And that really, some people don't get that until they're older.
Yeah.
Some people don't have that ability. I did not have that ability until I was older to start slowly tweaking things that led to bigger changes in how I functioned.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of comments about Callahan and about coaching. This is not a defense of the Callahan scheme. I was critical of the short pass to long pass type setup, weird strangeness. People know that I was not the biggest proponent of the philosophies. I do not see Levis's struggles as having been connected to those philosophies. Like if we point out the singular moments that define the Will Levis era, they are so outside of scheme.
Yeah.
Now you can ask whether
all of Cam Ward's best moments are outside of scheme.
And you can ask whether Callahan and McCoy and Hardigree and Holtz were too insistent on coaching players into scheme and were too rigid about trying to play within a philosophy. That is a fair question. But when the things that undid Levis's progress had so much to do with playing outside of the scheme, I have a hard time blaming coaching for that unraveling. Even though I do think good coaching could allow him to play freer, I don't think the fact that he was in the scheme he was in has all that much to do with the unraveling.
Yeah. Somebody was talking about how Cam Ward made a lot of mistakes and that we just I guess kind of excuse those. I don't think that's true at all. I think we were critical of Cam when he deserved criticism, and we were positive about Cam when he deserved to be positive. I think scheme was certainly a part of Will Levis, but Will Levis was a part of Will Levis. He also was just never a really accurate quarterback ever, not even in college. He had one great season with Liam Cohen, and Liam Cohen was really good for Jacksonville and really good for Tampa, and that's all true. But I think with Cam, there's also this is going to go really strange. I don't know if this makes sense. If you ever study the Stoics from a philosophy standpoint, Stoicism, right? Yeah. Cam Ward is he's bathed in Stoicism. Like that's how he approaches things. Will Levis is the Leroy Jenkins philosophy. and I think that's the right way to explain them. And what happens over time is you kind of do this, right? Like you learn to calm down when you're the Leroy Jenkins type, and you learn to kind of find yourself if you're the Stoic type. And I think the Stoicism is a generally better default mode for a young quarterback to deal with adversity and struggle like all young quarterbacks will. That's all.
Yeah. And there's a lot of causation, correlation, mistakes going on today. When you talk about Will and having regressed under Callahan, the two things that need to be acknowledged are, number one, pre-Callahan, he had Derrick Henry in the backfield, and that did change the shape of defenses that he was facing. And number two, he really played 2 or 3 good games.
He had 2 great games. 2 great games.
Yeah. And the rest were average to below average, which is not that far off from the ratio that Cam just experienced, which was 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, pretty good games. And when we're talking about Cam's progress after Callahan left, if you guys think the reason that the rookie quarterback got better later in his rookie season had more to do with a coach being fired after week 6 than it had to do with a rookie quarterback getting more snaps in the NFL and getting more comfortable, you and I jump to conclusions very, very differently. I have so much confidence that Cam's progress had more to do with Cam maturing than it did with, oh, you fired a coach who was replaced by a bunch of guys that he hired philosophically.
Coach B, like, why do you think we're defending Brian Callahan? Like, I don't understand the commentary. I know that this is the hill you want to die on in the show today, Coach B, which is that you love Will Levis. We think he's terrible. It was all Callahan's fault, and he's not worth a 6th-round pick. Well, Nick just laid out all of the backup quarterback trades. We absolutely think that Brian Callahan is part of the problem, but he didn't have a great rookie season. He's still super talented. He got hurt and didn't get better. Cam Ward, I was very critical of Cam Ward the entire time last year, especially the first 10 or 12 games. I don't know what you want here. Like, I think you keep Will Levis until a team is desperate in August, and if you can get a draft pick for him, I think you're maximizing the value of an asset that really serves no purpose to you. I started this entire section of the show with, are we missing the value he could present to the team? Like, if Cam Ward dumps out and fails and is terrible, and 2 years from now they need another quarterback, should Will Levis be the guy who's waited his turn to be there? And is he good enough to do that? I don't know. That's the only value he presents to the team, is to be some backup option if Robert Griffin III happens to Cam Ward. Like, I don't know.
And with the Cam stuff, Z Dean's comment here, Borgonzi said the main reason Callahan was fired because he didn't see improvement in Cam. Then Cam improves once Callahan is gone. Yes, that is the point we're making, causation and correlation wise. There is a difference between a guy improved after Callahan was gone and a guy improved because Callahan was gone. It is true that he improved after Callahan left. There is absolutely no way to prove that the reason he improved was because Callahan got fired. The likelihood is that every single rookie quarterback that ends up being good as a pro tends to be better in the second half than they were in the first half.
Right.
That tends to be the progression of a rookie quarterback, is you get better as you've played more games. And we spent
all things in life.
Yeah. We spent all of last offseason talking about the most important thing is going to be if Cam Ward is better in December than he was in September. And Cam Ward was better in December than he was in September. If you guys personally want to say that is because Brian Callahan got fired in October, you can feel free to. All I am saying is that does not add up with the general progression of quarterbacks. Most quarterbacks who have their coach fired tend to get worse.
But that's
because of the lack of rhythm, the lack of continuity.
Right. And this is what I was going to say. Like, is that because Callahan individually, who, by the way, wasn't calling plays there for a few of those games, was keeping the entire offense down, and Bo Hardegree was allowed to flourish. Nick Foles was allowed to flourish with Cam Ward. Like, it was all the same stuff. It was the same playbook. It was the exact same everything. Play calling was a little different, but anyway, I don't want to beat the dead horse.
Let's talk about Polymarket for a second.
Yeah, real quickly here. So Daniel Jeremiah reports that the Titans are, quote, out on Rueben Bain, or I don't think he's their guy, or whatever. That's why he mocked Jeremiah Love to the Tennessee Titans at 4. I wanted to pull up the Polymarkets real fast here. So so that you don't know anything about Kalshi or Polymarkets, it's people betting against people on outcomes of things. And so it's not the same as going to a bookie or whatever. 98% of the wagers have Fernando Mendoza going number 1. It's over $1 million in wagers, and it's nobody's betting against it. There's 1%, 1.2% of people are betting against Fernando Mendoza being the first pick in the draft. So again, this is just data to consider. It does not mean anything other than it's data to consider. Right now, and these numbers change every single time someone places a bet, especially when someone places a large bet. But right now, Arvel Reese at time of taping on Kalshi has a 52%. 52% of the wagers are going in on Arvel Reese being the number 2 pick. 40% have David Bailey being the number 2 pick. 4% Sonny Styles. 2% Jeremiah Love. That's it. That's basically the Jets' decision right now is down to Arvel Reese and David Bailey, with Arvel Reese with the lead. I think that's the right way to explain it. You go to 3, and it starts to get real crazy. Arvel Reese, 31% chance of being the pick at number 3. David Bailey, a 22% chance of being the pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Francis Moanoa, the offensive lineman out of Miami, has a 15% chance of being the pick. Jeremiah Love, 10%. Sonny Styles, 7%. You got to get all the way down to 6% of the wagers are coming in on Rueben Bain to be the pick at number 3. Ty Simpson, by the way, 5%. So Ty Simpson is as likely, according to Kalshi, to be picked at number 3 as Rueben Bain is. Then you get to the Titans. Jeremiah Love, 31%. David Bailey, 16%. And up about 8% over the last week. Carnell Tate, now at 12%. People coming in this week heavy on Carnell Tate as an option to be picked at number 3. Sonny Styles, 9%. Rueben Bain down 5%. So basically, Carnell Tate and Rueben Bain have swapped spots in the predictive markets. And Rueben Bain is now at 8%, Arvell Reese 7%, Francis Moanoa 3%. So, look, we have talked about the Rueben Bain thing. We've talked about his arms. We've talked about other teams maybe not having him on boards. We've talked about not all of the information is maybe out in public. We've talked about what position he can play. We've talked about how good he will be on the defensive line, just not sure where he's going to play. The prediction markets, and I think James Foster said this on a hot read every single episode, he thinks he's not a top 10 prospect. He is more of the 12 to 15 range of prospect. And the prediction markets are telling you that as well now. They have come around on this. So I don't know if Jeremiah Love is the pick. I think if David Bailey is there, they would take David Bailey. But more and more, it looks like David Bailey could be in play at 2 and at 3, more so than we believed in the first place. So what are your thoughts on the Rueben Bain story arc here?
I'm not surprised. Again, there's a difference between Nick Suss as a reporter and Nick Suss as guy who likes certain football players. I have not hidden the fact that I think very highly of Rueben Bain, the football player, that I think that he is closer to a sure thing than Arvell Reese is. And if you are drafting based off of safety rather than projectability, I do think he belongs in the top 5. I really like the production. I really like the way he plays. I really like how he plays against the run and more than just being a pass rusher. There's a lot to like about Rueben Bain. I am not surprised based off of news gathering and based off of reporting and just based off of reading mock drafts post-combine that Bain is considered to be sliding into the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range. Are the Titans out on Rueben Bain? I'm not going to sit here and say yes, but I've never really gotten the read that he was their number 1 option. We will see who picks number 2 and 3 are. If David Bailey goes 2 and Arvell Reese goes 3 or vice versa, you're going to be at a point where you have to make the question about positional value versus raw talent. Yeah. And so if there's a situation where both of the top 2, quote unquote, top 2 edge rushers are off the board, you're going to have to make a value decision about Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate, Rueben Bain, and then theoretically Styles can be thrown in there as well. You're going to have to make that value judgment, but no, the stuff on Bain totally adds up as guy who is a better football player than football prospect, because guys who are better football players than football prospects tend to fall down the draft boards when you have more time to evaluate them.
And sometimes that's the wrong thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like sometimes the good old football player is still just a good old football player in the NFL, despite not having the measurables or whatever. Sometimes that's the wrong thing to do to a prospect. Sometimes it's the right thing to do to a prospect. Let me float a dynamic here and see what you think. This is purely sort of me doing, let's call it informed speculation. I think the coaching staff is higher on Bain than the front office, if I had to guess. Do you think that's a fair projection of how the building feels about Rueben Bain?
I would say that's probably a fair projection of most buildings. I do think he is more of a football guy than a scout guy, which is kind of what we're hinting at. I think that there is almost certainly an awareness within this organization that the trait that needs to be targeted at that position is speed, since they tend to be pretty covered on power right now. So I think that the coaches do have an awareness that Bain is less of a fit for need than either of the other 2 rushers would be. But I also don't think that people are only evaluated on need. So I think that there are coaches who value him. I don't want to sit here and say they are totally out on Bain. That's not at all what I believe. Yeah. But
I mean, if they're picking if they trade down to 8th or 9th, I think Rueben Bain is a very real possibility.
Yeah.
So it's all about what you're giving up to get him. Because here's the thing. I think if this organization does not have Jeremiah Love graded out as just simply the better football player / prospect, just horizontally, right, on the board. Jeremiah Love is just a cut above. And you could say all the same things for Sonny Styles. I just think Sonny Styles is less likely of a pick for them. But I think if they're just graded out as the best, if Jeremiah Love is just so much higher on their board than Rueben Bain or Arvell Reese or David Bailey or any of these other options, Cardinal Tate, whatever, then they should stick to their board and take Jeremiah Love. If Jeremiah Love is just a really good running back prospect and he's graded out similarly than these other guys, then running back is not the smart pick here. Neither is linebacker, middle linebacker, off-ball linebacker. I think this is why Cardinal Tate is moving up the poly markets, because if you don't love Bain as a top prospect and you think Reese and Bailey are off the board and you don't grade Love in the same way that other people grade Jeremiah Love, one of the most logical picks would be Cardinal Tate. That he instantly solves the problem, that he starts right away, that he helps your quarterback. There's not as much downside. And if they're all great, he's a premium position and he fills a need long term. Like Cardinal Tate does check a lot of boxes. Even if you don't think he's nearly as good as any of the other Ohio State prospects at wide receiver over the last few years. Does that make sense?
It does. It's very funny that last year the joke that I would tell anybody about the Titans was that they led the league in number 3 receivers. Thought they had 4 number 3 receivers on roster. Now this year, if they draft Tate, they'd lead the league in number 2 receivers. Good job. You've improved from having 4 number 3 receivers to having 4 number 2 receivers.
That's how I feel. But there's number 2. It's a number. Bain is a number 2 defensive end. You know, Mo Noah is a number 2 tackle. Jeremiah Love might be a true number 1 running back, and being a true number 1 is the only thing that like Tate's a number 2. Like Mansour Delane might be a number 2 corner. Like I don't know.
My fear with Love, and I don't know if I've articulated this a lot, but when you look at the running backs who have been worthy of going in the top 5, in the top 10 recently, we know them as volume ball carriers. Like Saquon Barkley and Ashton Genty and Todd Gurley and Zeke Elliott. These are guys that we knew were workhorses that you could pick in the top 10 and justify a top 10 contract because you know they're going to touch the ball 30 times a game. I don't know if Jeremiah Love has the frame to withstand that kind of workload, especially since Notre Dame was very careful to split carries with him and Jadarian Price.
Never got hurt.
He never got hurt. And I know that Bijan Robinson came out of a system where there were multiple running backs. That's not to say that you can't grow into a workload. But I believe the best policy in the NFL is to have 3 running backs rotating. I agree. That is my strategic belief. And if you are going to justify picking a running back who was not a one-man band in college to pay him to be a one-man band in the pros, you're creating a bit of a logical problem. That's not to say that he's not the best player on the board. We can all scout people how we want to scout people. I'm not as high on Love as some people.
Which player? Because Coach B says the pick at 4 is a rare opportunity to get an elite edge. There may not be any of those in this draft, unfortunately. And if you believe in Reese, then you're projecting. And if you believe, I think Bailey's probably the only one that really actually has that chance to be an elite edge. So if he's available and you think he is, then you got to take him. And I'm okay with that. But the player that has the least questions at the press conference, which I'm using as a cutout for on the field, right?
Yeah.
Strategy. But the one who they don't have to explain too much to us at all is Cardinal Tate. They don't have to. You take Tyson, you got to explain things. Even Mekhi Lemon, you may not have to explain much. But if you take Cardinal Tate at number 4, you don't have to step to the plate. You say, we see traits of an elite number 1 outside receiver. It's a position of need, and it's a premium position, and we've gotten Cam Ward some help. Questions? And you don't have anything for him.
Yeah.
There's questions about Bain. There's questions about Love. There's questions about strategy with projecting Reese. There's questions about any of the offensive linemen. Taking a corner there is too early. Like, there's all kinds of questions about literally everybody else. And that's why I'm like, okay, if they're going to be safe and try to pick somebody that's guaranteed to help the team, it's like Love, Styles, and Tate are the guys. And like the other ones, you have to ask questions about the strategy. You already have Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. Taking a off-ball linebacker there is generally crazy. Yeah, Tate's the one that you don't have to explain.
I would probably put Bailey in that bunch, but I understand that we can nitpick everything. I'm saying that too. I'm saying it feels very likely
that Reese and Bain and Mendoza are off the board. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, no, it's
so there you go.
2 weeks. 2 weeks till the draft. Hopefully, we will we will stop being able to regurgitate this stuff. We got 5 minutes. You want to talk about referees for a little bit?
Are the Titans out on Dianna Russini? No. All right. So in Sinkers Beverages, in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. That's the email address. Please send an email and come hang out with us. We're going to have a private Q&A, silent auction with Tennessee Titans gear, some new logoed stuff, Shotgun Willie's barbecue, a 5-flight bourbon tasting. A bunch of reporters are going to be there to tell off-the-record stories. We're going to violate trust the entire time from 7 to 10 p.m. on April 25th. After every single pick is done, we're going to analyze the entire depth of the Titans draft class with Kaharski, with Suss, with Cavendish, with me. There'll be some other special guests there as well. So please, every single penny goes to charity. $75 on Saturday night, Shotgun Willie's barbecue. On Thursday night, we're going to have some live stream stuff. We're going to have some special guests. We're going to have a contest. All you can eat, all you can drink. Come on out, $40. Every penny goes to charity. Both of them will have limited supply of tickets. Both spaces are limited in how many people we can have. And I'm so excited to say we're getting much closer to that sooner than I expected. So if you want to get in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com, email and RSVP to that email address, and we'll get you in. Quickly, Tennessean.com, by the way, pay for good journalism. We can spend more time on this maybe next week as well because we didn't get into this. But the NFL told NFL teams. The NFL told its teams that when the deal with the officials on May 31st expires, to expect replacement referees to show up at facilities to begin training or work or reps or whatever you want to call it on June 1st. 2012 is the last time this happened. It was a major problem. Karski and I talked a little bit about this on Monday because at the owners' meetings, they approved the use of replay oversight to help the poor officials with their jobs. This is not starting well, Nick, because all the negotiations have been completely non-existent. They've fallen apart quickly and have accomplished nothing. This is not a good place to be. I mean, if you have a really good team in the NFL that wants to win a Super Bowl this year, not a good place for you. Less impactful on the Titans.
No, I was actually going to say this might end up helping.
That's right. That's right.
Injecting chaos into the game will probably help the teams at the bottom of the league. But so yesterday I went online and I found a quiz that is administered to college refs, I think in the Mountain West or something. And it was a 15-question quiz where if you get 70% right, you are deemed good enough to at least try out to be a Mountain West referee. And the head judges, the crew chiefs, are expected to be up around 90-95% accuracy. I took this quiz. You guys would probably agree that I'm a pretty knowledgeable football mind. I spend a lot of time thinking about football. I got 8 out of 15. I barely did better than average. This is a really hard job. And you can think you know football and you can think you understand the intricacies and the ins and outs. I can't think of a sport in the public consciousness that is more convoluted and has more difficult, unimpeachable rules. It is a brick wall of a rule book. Every single week we are debating about really granular stuff that we should understand. We should have a fundamental understanding of, if the quarterback gets hit and the ball goes backwards and then is batted forward by an offensive player, where does the ball get set on the next play? Do you know? I don't know. It's really, really tricky to understand this game.
I got one real fast.
Let's
see if you get it. If a team is punting and the ball gets punted beyond the line of scrimmage, but then bounces back behind the line of scrimmage because it was a really bad punt, is the ball live?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, it's live.
You can pick it up as an offensive player and make a play and pick up a first down.
Yeah.
I don't think people know that rule. That's a crazy rule.
By comparison, let's be a basketball referee real quick. Did you touch the guy, yes or no? That's pretty much the one rubric for fouls.
I mean, one guy created an entire career on CBS Sports by just asking that question: block or charge.
Think about being a baseball umpire. Fair, foul, strike ball.
Yeah, baseball's tricky. You got the infield fly rule. You got all kinds of illegal shift rules now. They've added some stuff to it.
The infield fly rule are there 2 players on base? Is the ball up?
Dude, I am trying to teach my daughter softball. The rules of baseball and softball are far less. The one thing about football that's different is the simplicity of the goal of the game is very easy to teach. You get across that line, that person's going to stop you from getting across that line. That is the simplest and easiest sport to teach kids. It's very simple. Softball and baseball is so hard to teach kids. Oh, it's a tag, it's a force out, there's runners on base. Oh, you got to go back. You can't, like, all kinds of crazy stuff. I'll say hockey. What makes hockey really fun is, like, would that be a criminal offense on a sidewalk? And if it's a criminal offense on a sidewalk, then it's probably a penalty for 2 minutes in hockey.
Yes.
If you run up and hit a guy in the face with a stick.
all of my preaching right here is pretty much boiling down to my unified theory of football officiating, which is there's too many rules. This game's too complicated. I know we all love this game. This game's too complicated. We got to simplify. We got to simplify this rule book. These replacement refs are going to be bad at their jobs. And I'm not trying to speak declaratively just to be dramatic an hour and 90 seconds.
They're not the starting refs for a reason.
This is going to be a disaster.
Yeah,
this is going to be bad. There are going to be mistakes, and people are A, going to get really frustrated, and B, more importantly to the NFL, people are going to lose a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of money that is not going where it needs to go.
And ultimately, that's my whole theory on this. You are a $1 billion industry that prints money. You can't somehow just look at your refs and say, what do you guys want? Like, what do you want? Because it is a complicated ask. I think that's the one thing that's lost in all of this. They are not just asking for higher salaries. That's not what they want. Some of them have other jobs. They're asking to be around the facility. The NFL wants them to be around the facility more. It's a part-time job. Well, then you can say, well, just make it a full-time job. Well, these guys don't all want it to be a full-time job. So it's complicated. It has much like the rule book. It's not cut and dry and simple. So, but at the end of the day, if you're the NFL, I feel like you could make it work. Like, figure out a way to make the referees happy, because the integrity of the outcomes of your game are why you make billions and billions of dollars. You cannot be sacrificing the integrity of the outcomes, not for gambling purposes or for mistake purposes.
Yeah, I mean, not to age myself, but the replacement ref issue of 2012, that was my freshman year of college. And I remember being in the dorms during the Fail Mary. And I remember trying to articulate to people who weren't football fans why what had just happened was such a crisis point for the game. If you do not have trust in the people who are keeping you safe and who are making the decisions that decide outcomes, you do not have a game.
Yeah.
The NFL needs to figure this out, because replacement referees, we are all scarred by it. Whether you're a Packers fan or not, we are all scarred by this will make the game worse. Now, if you guys recall, the same week of the Fail Mary, the Titans played one of the most fun games in the history of the National Football League. That has nothing to do with it. That was the week of the Titans-Lions game in 2012, where there were like 5 different 70-yard touchdowns by kick return, punt return, interception return, fumble return. The Titans were up 14 with like 12 seconds left, and the game went to overtime.
Okay, 2012. Where were you? Were you even were you in high school in 2012? Where were you?
I was in college.
You were in college. So in college, not working as a journalist, not covering a team, and you can remember that game.
Yeah, it was a fun game. It was a really fun game.
That's very impressive.
If you guys haven't watched the highlights of that recently, go back and rewatch the highlights of the 2012 Titans versus Lions game. It will be some of the most fun you ever have watching a strange, weird football game. I won't spoil the ending. It went to overtime. I won't say who won. I won't say why they won. Great ending. Great whole game. Fantastic, fantastic game.
So this was Seattle Green Bay, right? Week 3?
Week 3, yeah.
14-12 was the final score on a Golden Tate 24-yard pass from Russell Wilson as no time.
Now look up what the final score of the Titans-Lions game was.
Okay, I can do that. Trust me, as a Packers fan, you don't have to tell me about the Fail Mary. Let's see here. Tennessee. This will take me just a second here. Titans history. There we go. Down to 2012. This is such good podcasting here. All right. Against the Lions.
Yep.
44-41 win in overtime. Let's see here. This is a fun exercise. Started off with 3 straight field goals, and then you had a Tommy Campbell 65-yard punt return, Jared Cook a 61-yard touchdown pass. How about the Mikel LaShore 1-yard touchdown run? Nate Burleson 3-yard pass from Stafford. Darius Reynaud 105-yard kick return. Nate Washington 71-yard pass from Jay Clocker. Altern Werner 72-yard defensive fumble return. And then Titus Young a 46-yard touchdown pass from Sean Hill for the Lions. I guess Stafford got hurt.
Look at the timestamps on these plays, though, when you get to the Sean Hill part.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so Nate Washington. So Darius Reynaud scored with 6:41 to go in the game to make it 27-27. 3:11 to go in the game. Nate Washington scores on 71-yard touchdown pass to go up 34-27. Titans then score at 1:16 again on a 72-yard defensive touchdown to make it 41-27. Then Calvin Johnson scored with 18 seconds to go to make it 41-34. And then Titus Young scored again. They scored 2 touchdowns in 18 seconds?
Yes, they did.
Is that an onside kick?
Yeah. Without Stafford, without Matthew Stafford. And then the way the game ended, for those of you who don't remember, the Titans kicked a field goal to extend the game in overtime. I believe this was the first year where a field goal didn't automatically win the game in overtime. So the Lions got another shot. They got down into the red zone and could have kicked a field goal on a 4th and inches to tie the game again. But Jim Schwartz decided to quarterback sneak with his backup quarterback, and the Titans stuffed it to win. I believe it was a quarterback sneak. It might have been a handoff, but either way, truly, like, I remember the next day or the Tuesday after the Hail Mary, everybody's like, "Oh, the NFL's broken. Oh, you can't do it with these replacement refs." And I was just like, "Do you guys watch the greatest game you've ever seen? Did you guys see that game with the 60-yard touchdown pass, interception return, punt return, and friggin' kickoff return?"
I started covering so I lived in Nashville in high school, and I went to all the games in the 90s and the early 2000s when I was in college. So I know Titans stuff from like 98 to like 2003. And then I started working in college football, and I started covering college football. And not until 2016 did I start covering the Titans, and that's when all my Titans knowledge comes back. So I don't have the same callback as you do. But man, I need to go back and watch the highlights of that game.
Do yourself a favor. I think the YouTube video of the highlights is like the best game you've never seen, or something like that. But
I mean, remember,
absolutely crazy.
Lions Titans in that time might not have been worth watching, like as a marketing. So
there are a couple of moments with Jake Locker comparable to the Levis stuff, where, like, if you talk about the 2 or 3 best games, if you talk about the Chargers game in 2013, if you talk about this Lions game, there were a couple of moments. there was a little bit of fun.
The Titans were 6-10 that year, and the Lions were 4-12 that year. So there you go.
Great football.
All right. Officiating, replacement officials, we'll keep an eye on it. Not until June 1st does the contract run out. So the collective bargaining goes in. It's still for another month and a half. So we'll see at the end of May what's going on. We'll keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on those Cauchy markets as it pertains to the draft picks. It seems like Carnell Tate is moving up, Rueben Bain moving down. That's all that really kind of matters in the draft, the data analysis there. Make sure you know what information you're getting about your team, and make sure you understand the dynamics of how that information got to you. I think you'll be a smarter fan for it. I think most people do. And then, of course, obviously, subscribe to Tennessean and RSVP for our draft party. Charity draft party coming up on the 23rd, first round at ML Rose. And on Saturday night, private Q&A, bourbon tasting, all-you-can-eat barbecue, shotgun Willie's on Saturday with the great reporter Q&A. Okay. That does it for us. We're a little bit late here, but we went a little bit long on all the sections. So remember, as Z Dean says, is our final word on the show today. Interlocking fingers is totally normal. For Nick, I am Braden. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.